Welcome to the Landmark Theater's Q&A podcast. In this podcast, you will hear a discussion with director Asif Kapadia from the film Amy, moderated by Deadline Hollywood's Pete Hammond, recorded at the Landmark West LA.
Talk about how this came into your life. I mean, the idea of doing Amy Winehouse, was it originally yours, or did somebody come to you and say, this would make a great documentary?
So I was last here with my previous film, Senna, and I did loads of Q&As there. And
It's a great movie, Senna.
So it was really off the back of that film, I guess. There was somebody at Universal Music in London who liked Senna and who had called my producer up on the film and said, look, excuse me, what do you think? What about doing a film about Amy? So James, the producer, had to think about it and called me up, and it just felt like there was something there, there was something in the project. She's a local girl. I knew she had a great voice, but I never really understood why the story turned out the way it did. I mean, I lived like half a mile away from her door, so I know that area, and this kind of madness, this tornado was just kind of going on down the street, and nobody seemed to stop it. And when I heard she had died, I remember not being particularly shocked. I just thought it was going to happen. It was going that way. So there's something about her, and something about this situation that was around her, and the fact that it was about my city. There's something about making a film about London at that particular moment in time that I suppose excited me.
Well, it's not just that you made a documentary, but like Senna, you have this very unique style, and if you didn't notice it while you were watching it, there's no narration, there's no narrator, there's no talking headshots of your interviewees. They're all voiceover. It's all told from her point of view, almost like it's fiction. It's almost, which is an extraordinary thing to pull off, but extraordinarily difficult, I think.
Yeah, I guess it comes from the fact that my background is in drama and in fiction, and so I don't normally start off by kind of doing an interview on camera. Both Senna and Amy were for two different reasons. Senna, I did a bit of research and there was this amazing material, and I just thought this looks so fantastic. I don't need to do interviews. With Amy, it was slightly different. With Amy, nobody really wanted to talk. Nobody wanted to be a part of the film. There was so much pain. It was still very raw. No one had got over it. There was a lot of anger. So they just felt, it's going to be another journalist or someone taking advantage of the story or the situation. So they really didn't want to engage. So the only way I really was able to earn their trust was to say, just talk to me. I won't bring a camera. Just do a microphone in a room. We'll talk. If you're not happy with anything, don't sign a release. I can't use it. But I don't really understand what went on. I don't understand the story. And unless you tell me, I'll never figure it out. So one by one, people trusted me enough to meet and to talk. And so we started off with all of the audio. And then bit by bit, they all kind of trusted me enough to say, well, I've got these photographs, I've got these home videos, I've got an answer phone message, I've got holiday videos, there were loads. Once they had spoken to me, they then gave me their personal footage.
That is the amazing thing. She basically lived her life in front of cameras in every way that you see on this film. You really had a treasure trove of material that had they not cooperated, you wouldn't have had this movie on.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a long period of making a film. I just think there's no movie. I don't know how I'm going to do this. You don't know, and it's a gamble. Doing it this way is a big gamble because they take longer. You have to keep looking. You have to kind of trust. Then you have to look at the material in a different way. In a way, by looking deeper. I guess that's when I thought, okay, Amy just stopped giving interviews. After Back to Black came out, she never spoke really. She hardly gave an interview. So really, then I realised I have to rely on her lyrics. Her lyrics are her voice. That's her at her most eloquent. And so very early on, I thought, okay, we'll structure the film around the songs, and that will be the spine of the movie. If we can understand the songs, then we'll understand her. So really, that's when because I realised that the songs were all based on true incidents and real people. So there was a moment when I was talking to Nick when I just realised, oh my God, you're the guy that took her to rehab. Because he was telling me the story, and it all sounds vaguely familiar. And you realise it's actually the song, literally what happened. She put it into a song, and almost like a hip-hop song, a diss, it was like she was making fun of him. Exactly like a na-na-na-na-na, you tried to take me there. But actually, deep down, she still stayed friends with him and still called him up. And so that was a big part of it. The songs became a key part of the structure of using her voice.
Oh, it's such a key part of the structure of what you've done. It's absolutely brilliant. It's like a musical. And it's like these were written for your story here, which is just must be an incredible discovery to be able to make when you see that.
Well, it's just one of those crazy things. I know these songs, we all know these songs, we've heard these records hundreds of times. Never really listened very carefully, did I? I just thought, I can't believe I never really understood the lyrics, and I think it was just one of those things of just paying attention. So when you don't do talking heads, you have to pay more attention to the material you do have. There was a lot of performances, a lot of bad performances, I have to say, in the latter period, but there was very little in the early years, and so a little bit has to go a long way. So luckily, Laura and her friends shot a lot of stuff, mainly because they were middle-class kids. This is pre-iPhone generation. These aren't camera phone kind of footage type stuff. This is mini DV cameras or VHS cameras or DVD recorders. So really, because they come from some background, their families had cameras that they shot everything. And really, Nick and Lauren and Juliet's material really gave us an opening. That's when I thought we had a movie. Because I'd never seen that girl before. I didn't realize she was so funny, so intelligent and sharp and beautiful, and total antithesis of everything that we saw on stage, which was messed up. And so that's when I realised, how does it go from there to there so quickly? That kind of became a movie. That's when I thought, okay, we have a film.
And you had those moments early on, and where she's saying, "If I became famous, I'd go mad." And that's just so telling when you see it now in retrospect. Because I think everybody, in their experience with Amy Winehouse, sort of knew where it was going to end. We've seen it so many times, and here to see it play out this way is just sad. It's just such a waste. It's so sad to watch.
I think particularly here because I think you became aware of her a bit later. We knew of her in the first album around that time. I knew of her. So you knew she was kind of this funny girl that was around town and did jazz. But that album didn't really come out in the US, so it was really Back to Black that made her name. And unfortunately, by the time Back to Black came out, she had, got into some dark stuff and really stopped speaking and was a different person. I think was a different character. So a lot of the journalists I spoke to here would talk about it in a very negative way, and I kept saying, even though they had met her, and I never met her, I never saw her live, I didn't know her, I kept thinking, you never met her, and they're like, what are you talking about? Sitting across the table from her, and for 2 hours, she didn't say a thing. And I was like, yeah, but she's changed. I've seen this earlier, young Amy. Wait till you see, I want to show you now what she used to be like, because they were quite dismissive of her as a person. I think that became the kind of prevailing way people looked at her. They just thought, she made a few songs, she had a good voice, but she was a bit of an idiot. And really the film's aim, the mission was to just try and understand her a bit better, humanize her a bit. She became too easy to make fun of.
Her father has been criticizing the film, continues to criticize the film, but then says, go see the film, make up your own mind. I mean, I keep saying everything he's saying. You got his cooperation in this, and you weren't afraid to show warts and all here.
We had to. I think we just felt we owed it to her. That's why I was making the film. I wasn't making the film for anyone else. I was making it for her. It's about her. It's called Amy. And it was just one of those things where once you do your homework and your research and you speak to over 100 people I interviewed and spent 3 years making it, enough evidence, kind of stories kept coming up again and again, and then enough footage kind of backed it up that I felt we have to just go there. We have to show there were a lot of people around her that made decisions that weren't necessarily the best for her, but seemed to suit other people, a lot of people. And then there's our whole industry's involvement, and there's the paparazzi, and there's the press, and there's the audience who came to enjoyed laughing at her for a long period of time. So I felt like we had to kind of do the honest as we possibly could version,
Yeah, it's interesting to see all the comedians and all that stuff as you put that later in the film, because you don't laugh at it now. When you see it, you just feel so sad.
That section could easily have been half an hour long. I mean, there's loads of people who it was the cheapest joke ever, it's so easy to make fun of someone. But now you realise they've got mental illness, it wasn't well.
Something. Does anybody have any questions here? If you do, I'll say it so they can hear it go.
If you were God and could change history, could she have been saved? Was she doomed? Could anything have saved her?
Could anything have saved Amy, or was she doomed?
I've spoken to her friends, and they all said, there is this kind of thing of, someone's going down a certain path, but I guess what her friends have said to me is, well, at least you can try. At least you can try by maybe, if there's a point when it looks like there's a window of opportunity to give it a go, to actually take her to a proper rehab. Maybe there's a point when you think she should not be on stage. She should not be doing that tour. That probably wasn't going to help her to be in front of that many thousand people, which is not well. So I think I can see on one side people felt they wanted to keep her busy, but I think a small gig to 50, 60 people would have been better to keep her busy than 20,000 people singing an album, which typical cycle for an album, I'm told, is about 6 to 18 months performing it. This is 6 years after the record's come out. She's bored of her songs. She doesn't sing her songs anymore. So I feel like, yes, I don't know, I don't think anyone's journey or path is predestined. I think there's always a chance for it to go a different way. I think she needed a bit more support earlier. And I think the earlier you try, the more chance you have of succeeding, I think. You probably have to try again and again and again. I mean, the conundrum really is, as Nick says in the film, if they'd helped her, maybe the album would not have happened. And I think there's a whole kind of concept of art, isn't it? It's like, what's more important, the painting or the person still alive?
Yeah.
Or lives a longer life, you know? And I think that's kind of a part of it, is that do you have to have this darkness in order to create? I don't think so. I think there's lots of great artists who create without having to be suffering from depression and having to, die young.
Yeah, well, there's that scene where she says, oh, it just keeps coming out of me. I don't know. It just keeps, I'm here, let's do it. I'm screwed up, but it just keeps coming out.
Yeah. I think the challenge of following up that big album is also so much pressure. I wish she just knocked out a kind of experimental hip-hop album and it sold 10 copies, but at least she would have made something else. And maybe in history, time we would have gone, oh, that's great. But to kind of follow up a hit and to have another hit was so much pressure, I think.
Well, the Tony Bennett interview that you did was, very telling too. He said, if she could just live, she'd be right there with Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, right over here.
Thank you. I think you did a fantastic job. You really did humanize her. It was beautiful. With going through all this material, I read recently in an article, I think from Billboard, about this movie that Universal is not going to release any more albums of hers, and maybe even destroying some of the music.
Yeah, I don't know about all that stuff. I don't even know if that's true.
He's just asking it, he read something Universal's not going to put out any more albums and destroy whatever music they had.
The question with that is, would you like to, you just basically brought her back to life for us in the time that she was alive. Would you like to see Amy continue on?
Well, I mean, what I tried to do in this film, what I liked, what I really fell in love with was her live performances. And so, in a way, you may already know the songs, the albums, but actually, just her with the guitar singing acoustic versions really blew me away. So that's the kind of stuff I like. And I don't know if any of that stuff anyone has any masters of, because there just happened to be performances where Nick was shooting or someone else happened to be shooting them. It may be that somewhere down the line, some music will come out. I was kind of really wary about it being perceived that we've made a film just so they could bring out another record. So we were very clear with the label saying that, one, it's not my decision, they can do what they want to do. But I felt like, please don't just bring out a record off the back of the movie, because everyone's just going to think it's like it was just an ad, wasn't it? That's what it was. It wasn't meant to be. We didn't spend 3 years to do a kind of marketing thing. So there was a bit of a kind of deeper intention from our side. I think enough people asked for it. I'm sure someone at some point will try and deliver, but I don't know if they have those. They're not kind of mastered versions. They come off a DV tape. They come off little kind of tiny, but they sound great still, because it's just the power of the voice and the kind of quirkiness of her guitar playing. That's what I love. Maybe it will happen at some point.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Hey, I'm going to take the mic to you because there you go.
What was your favorite part about making the movie?
My favourite part about making a movie? Well, this is one of them. When you meet an audience, when you meet real people who are seeing it, because up until now there's been journalists and critics or people who are involved in the film, and it's quite stressful. And then suddenly you go somewhere and you go, wow, there's actually people watching the film. So that's always very exciting. I guess the big part was there's a moment when you're making a film, if you're lucky, and you're making a film about a person, a real person, and if you go, I really like this person. You kind of fall in love with them a bit. You go, this person's great. I'm on her side. I'm like, whatever happens now, we're in. Because there is a moment when you think, this is going to cause a bit of trouble. People are going to come for me. You know it. You go, what do we do? Well, we have to do it. We're in too deep. We've got to make this movie. We know too much, and we owe it to her. So that there was a moment there when you go, okay, we've done our homework. We have to get the movie out there as best as we can.
What's happened? I'm going to get other questions, but I'm sure people are wondering about Blake and what happened. Where is he now? And that interview you used, is that?
Yeah, I interviewed him a couple of times. He's they've grown up a little bit. He's got kids. I don't know if he's clean. I don't know if he'll ever be clean, but he's trying. He lives away from London, which I think is good, away from the limelight. it's tricky. They were messed up kids. You know, he was a messed up kid, she was a messed up kid. They met, it's like, this is perfect. Let's just, you know, do crazy things which people do when they're 21, 22, you know. But, you know, James is more in touch with the producer. He's just trying to get on with his life now. You know, suddenly it's not all so funny when you're in your 30s and struggling to get a job, which is really where he's at, I think, now.
And after people see this movie, they're definitely going to have opinions about him.
Yeah, I mean, the awkward part of this process is kind of like stirring up the hornet's nest again, just after it had gone quiet. But my feeling was that nothing really got resolved, and all the people I met were still, no one had closure, no one had really come to terms with the fact that she died. No one was culpable. No one took any responsibility for what happened, and life just went on. So now the people I've spoken to all feel they've got something off their chest. Someone trusted them, someone believed them, and someone was willing to listen and to try and show Amy. That was a line that kept coming up. You're going to show the real Amy, because the Amy we keep seeing on TV being made fun of and humiliated, or even if you Google her name, some horrific picture comes up. And they were like, you know, are you going to try and do balance that? I was like, that was our mission, was to, when you Google her, hopefully a pretty picture comes up of her looking great and being amazingly creative and healthy and bright eyes and not a messed up shot, which was the dumb thing at the beginning, just without thinking every picture they to use those pictures.
We got time for a couple more. Yes, right there. Yeah.
How much money did her father get from her?
How much money did her father get from her?
I have no idea. I mean, you know, I guess that, honestly, I don't know. I guess the estate is now owned by the family, so, you know, whatever that is, that is. I don't know. Yes?
What is the story behind Valerie, and why wasn't it shown?
Because, well, at the very end, within the credits,
The story behind
Valerie, the fight song. Valerie is a song where Mark Ronson asked lots of musicians, when he did, so for his album, to do covers. So it's actually a cover of a Zootons track, which is a kind of rock group. And so it's one of the songs that isn't her own, but she kind of made it her own. And so it's a very famous song, but there's a kind of a long story. There were two versions. There's a version that you hear in the film now, which wasn't released, which is a slow version that Amy did and Amy liked. And there was a dance version that was released, which I've heard she wasn't a huge fan of, but became a massive hit all over the place. So we use it, but it's kind of like the kind of the last song that she put out, but it wasn't really her song. It's her covering someone else. She made it up, right?
Yeah, way up there. Go ahead. I can't see you, but just shout it out.
Anyone? She didn't adopt a girl. She very good questions. These all very complicated situations. Right, she didn't adopt a girl. She definitely, one thing she wanted to do is have kids. I think she was very maternal. She always hoped that she could settle down and have a kid, and maybe that would have kind of given her something to live for. But I don't think she could by the end, unfortunately, because of the damage that she's done to her body. There was a girl who kind of came around who was called her goddaughter. Is that who you might mean? Who was a young singer. Yeah, it was kind of a strange thing. She's out there, she's performing, she's doing well. Amy sort of took her under her wing. Depending on who you ask, you know, one person said she was a goddaughter, another person said it's kind of conveniently she kind of suddenly turned up and was a goddaughter. It is a very complicated tale. We kind of chose not to go there, but she's out, she's performing, she's got her career, she presents children's TV, and Amy kind of took her under her wing and tried to gave her a record deal and helped her. That was it really, but it wasn't a charm.
Okay, yeah.
So earlier you said, like, with Amy's songs, like when she was alive, people just kind of knew she was there and they knew about her kids. But like after she died, like everybody kind of developed a newfound appreciation. Developing this movie, what would you say now you find is like your favorite song by her that you enjoy listening to?
The song, your favorite song.
Do you know what? I mean, of her own songs, I love Tears Dry on Their Own. That's a beautiful song. It's actually about a happy relationship. That's why it's an uplifting song. It's not about Blake. It's about someone else. No, you know what I mean. But it's true. It was Blake's relationship was very dark. All the songs were really dark about him. I really love that Donny Hathaway song that she sings in the middle. You know, sadly it's when Blake comes back. It's called When We're Still Friends. She did a particular concert in England in a church called Union Chapel, quite close to where I live. And she sings every now and again. She'll sing a few covers, and there's a couple of Donny Hathaway songs. I Will Always Love You and We're Still Friends that she sings, which I love. They're amazing. And there's one of them in the film that I'm a big fan of. But I think all of the early stuff was just messing around with the guitar. She looks so cool, you know. That's what I like. It's just like this. You don't expect that voice, and then she starts singing it like, wow. So I think all of those kind of really just happen to be there, capturing a moment. She stands up on stage and starts to sing, and just is incredible. I didn't even know she played the guitar before I made the film, you know.
I loved her sing Moon River at the beginning. I had no idea she did that. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Wow, just a great version of it. Okay, yeah, way up there.
Just out of curiosity, what pressures were put on you as the film developed from the industry?
So from the industry, actually, I have to be honest, none. I mean, the label kind of initiated the project. Never made a film before, so they just kind of left us alone. I think the one thing about making a film without a musician, you've got to have the music and the publishing and the estate and everything. Everything has to be on board. So the upside was we had it all on board. So I could then say, look, the only way this is going to work is if you just leave us alone. But if we do need to contact someone, then you'll need to help us. And so, you know, making contacts with people like Tony Bennett or trying to get hold of Questlove or someone like that in order to get them to be in the film, to be interviewed or sign off on their footage. All of that, I guess they were very helpful in, because, you know, if you randomly try and contact people, you're never going to get through. So actually, generally, the industry has been quite helpful. And that was before they saw the film. Now, once they've seen the film, I wouldn't say they're not being helpful. I think they're all thinking a bit about their industry. I know a few people I know in the entertainment business have said it's the first time they felt guilty about what they do, and you know, it's just making everyone think of it. I think that does, in the final section, kind of turn the mirror back to the audience and our part of it. You know, whether we were just the people clicking on YouTube videos or kind of writing hilarious comments on a kind of an image and they're looking really messed up. Or as comedians, or us kind of does chat show hosts that we all laughed along with, you know, all of that. I meet a lot of journalists who interviewed her or photographed her now, who are now talking about the film and having to go away and look at what they wrote about her because they couldn't remember if they wrote nice things or bad things, you know. There's all of that going on. Everyone's having to think a little bit about their own part of it. And I think that's good. I kind of wanted that. I wanted people to have to think about, well, did I do my bit that made that all happen? And what happens next time we see this going on with someone else?
He's talking about Michael Jackson and what happened with him at the end of his...
Really nobody, you know, could create enough of an intervention to stop it.
Nobody could stop what he was doing, and...
I think it's tricky when you get so successful and so powerful in a way, whether anyone's going to say, well, if you try to stop them, they fire you. I think that's what also happens, isn't it? I suppose with Amy, the thing about her is that I can kind of relate to her because she's like the girl next door. I might have bumped into her on the subway in London, you know. Whereas these other megastars are so from another planet, I feel like Michael Jackson. I don't even know how anyone would have ever come close to him. But Amy, I've now met everyone around her, and they're kind of all ordinary people. She was quite ordinary. She came from, you know, she wasn't that much of a child star. She was obviously young when she became famous and started recording. It just felt like with her, there were opportunities and things could have been done and could have helped. And it was time, and we've had to conflate the story. You know, there were a lot of seizures, there were a lot of overdoses, there were a lot of moments when people could have stopped. There were a lot of bad shows towards the end, and you know, there were some good ones, but there were a lot of tours to Dubai and places that no one ever goes to. There was a tour around Brazil, which again, there were a couple of good shows, but then quite a few not so good shows. And so we were only showing that final tour, but unfortunately there was a load of stuff that was going on. And everyone around thought there were moments when, you know, it should have just been stopped earlier, it wasn't.
Thank you so much for coming out. Congratulations on